imagine Mr. Reader's question, detail shops characteristically use a lot of unique chemicals. I think it's something that we're going to have to look at very closely as far as what the runoff would be. There are some things that
I was sure that's suggesting if they look at chemicals.
Yeah, we've had a kind of detailed business on John D. White, and the procedure is that Jay Squires, our stormwater manager, sits down with them and review requirements. I believe that's laid out by DPAC, and the applicant, the owner, would have to sign those requirements, and it is monitored by our stormwater manager quite closely in terms of when it rains and kind of looking at the chemicals that they use. So it is a very, I think, detailed process that Mr. Squires will review with the proposed applicant to make sure they meet our requirements as well as any other requirements.
So they don't have to engage in any kind of reclaim or processing of anything that runs off?
That would be something that Mr. Squires will address. That I don't know, but he will sit down with them and make sure that they meet all requirements from the city side, as well as if there's any DHEC requirements or other requirements that they have to meet, and that's reclaim or anything else.
But they cannot operate until Mr. Squires.
That is correct.
Examines.
That's correct. They cannot. I mean, if council decides to approve this tonight, the owner would have to come to our office and meet with Mr. Squires and basically sign off and review the information with him before they can officially run the car wash.
Any other questions? Thank you. And I'd like to declare this public hearing open. Is there anyone like to speak in favor of this zoning? Anyone like to speak against it?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. I'd like to make a motion that we accept this ordinance on the first reading.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Seven. We have another ordinance, C. Ordinance to amend the city of Spartanburg, South Carolina zoning ordinance by amending section 206, changing the district boundaries specific parcel 7-12-14-200-00, located at 234 South Spring Street, which is zone R8 SFD with a land use designation of single-family residential district. The zone LOD with a land use designation of limit office district, and providing for servability and effective date. Christy Webb, Executive Director on behalf of the Preservation Trust of Spartanburg Incorporated owner. And it'd be handled, presentation be handled by Stephen Monroe, Planning Director. Ms. Monroe.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. I have before you a rezoning request on behalf of Preservation Trust, and the property is this piece right here. Currently, right now, they're located right here in the corner of Henry and Spring Street in this office here that's currently zoned LOD, and they're asking for this piece of property here to be considered a zone change from R8 single-family residential to LOD. Preservation Trust, Christy Webb, the Executive Director, is here if you have any questions for her. But her application as well went to the Planning Commission on January 21st, and they endorsed the application. There was a number of testimony, and hopefully in your minutes you guys have had a copy of that. And I will probably divert with any other questions to Ms. Christy Webb, but if you have any questions for me, I can address those at this time. We do have some photos here before Ms. Webb talks to show you the current location of Preservation Trust as well as Partners for Active Living. And this is a house here that's under consideration. This is the back parking lot of the post office, and there's 3 other houses on this street before you have a vacant lot, and Beta Club Way and Emily Street on the other side. As you can see here, this is just an aerial here. showing you the house, and then Hydrant Street, Carlisle, and then, this is Hampton Heights here. And then just kind of showing you along Spring Street, some other uses, the charter school, the Montessori Academy, South Baptist, backs up to here. This is just kind of give you a little framework of the front of the house that's under consideration in the County Preservation Trust office. I think that's it. We have here back post office, and then this is the house adjacent to the house under consideration. And also to show you that if the rezoning is accepted, then they're required to meet the parking requirements set forth in the zoning ordinance, and this is where they would have the parking. This would be improved for off-street parking.
How many cars can fit back that different?
I don't know off the top of my head because we haven't actually had a site plan done, but they would have to get the handicap parking in there, and probably with our requirement, maybe 6 to 7 or so parking spaces. But this use, if the request is adopted, the current tenants would be Preservation Trust and possibly Partners for Active Living, as well as Hub City Farmers Market will move into that space.
Moving to that site?
That's correct.
And 7 parking spaces?
Well, we haven't actually laid it out.
I'm just hypothetically speaking, there's 7 parking spaces. Then people coming to visit, where would they park?
Well, there is actual behind there. Whoops, sorry, going the wrong way. I believe this particular space here, of course, if this is accepted, then this particular building, they may sublease this, but you're correct, if for some reason there's more people here, then they might be able to get an agreement with this property owner here to allow for overflow parking there, or they will have hopefully people there riding bikes to.
And the existing building has a beauty shop underneath.
That's correct, at the basement. So that,
So
as far as I know.
How many parking spaces do that beauty supply take up?
I don't know off the top of my head, but that's a fairly small space, so they probably only required to have at the most maybe 2 parking spaces. Since the beauty salon have gone in there, I have not seen, and Krista can talk to this, I have not seen or heard of any problem in terms of not having enough parking for all the uses there.
Not at this time.
Not at this time, that's correct.
But if they move in next door and then all the apartments you're saying moving in, then we're looking at quite a few spaces needed.
What we can do is we will look at our zoning ordinance, and based on the zoning ordinance, there's required parking that will be required of them, and I'm sorry, I don't have that number off the top of my head. It's based on the square footage of the space, and I think that house might be 5,000?
Yes.
3,000 square feet. And I don't know, based on the 3,000 square feet, I think they will meet our parking requirements. But I would have to look into that to make sure that they meet the parking requirements. And we would classify this as an office use, which would not require as many parking as, say, a retail use. And retail use would not be permitted in the LOD, which is the office only. So if they were to move out, another tenant move in would have to be like an office, law firm, accounting firm, something related to office, which again, it's the square footage of the house that would dictate how many parking spaces are required to have based on our zoning ordinance.
Yeah, because